Hi, everybody. Welcome to the workshop. My name is Daria. I'm a host at Focus Space. Before we begin, we just want to cover some housekeeping items. First, please note that this workshop is being recorded, but your faces and names will not appear in the recording, even if you have your video turned on. A copy of this recording will be sent out afterwards, and it will include the slides. And due to the significant number of attendees we have and signups, we ask that everyone remain on mute if possible, and we'll make sure to mute if you kind of come off mute on accident. No worries. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please type them into the chat, and Hayden will do his best to answer as he goes. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to welcome to our workshop series at Focused. Focused is a virtual co-working community for anyone who's new. We host daily, weekly, and monthly planning sessions, end of the day check-ins, and provide body doubling to knock out your goals. We're kind of like a gym for getting stuff done. So if you're curious to know more, I'll paste a link into the chat and you can check that out. There's a free 1-month trial offer. So invite your friends, family, whomever. And I'd like to introduce our presenter today. So we're here with Hayden Humphrey. He's an uplifter and mindset coach out to help people break up with the script and become the creator of their own lives. Hayden works with individuals one-on-one who are feeling stuck and unfulfilled and who are ready to build a life that is a reflection of their most authentic selves. Sounds great. One that's highly satisfying, joyful, and enriching. Hayden's going to explain what a mindset really is, how to stop limiting beliefs from running our lives, share some simple strategies for how to shift our mindset. And I'll pass it off to Hayden to get us started.
Amazing, Daria. Thank you so much for having me. Welcome, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I am super psyched to be here with y'all. This is one of my favorite topics to present on and work with people on. And I just want to say thanks for coming out, spending an hour of your evening learning about something that I think is incredibly valuable and incredibly powerful when it comes to creating the kinds of experiences that we're looking to have in life. So like Daria said, there's a couple things that we're going to go over today over the course of the next 56 minutes. But before we do that, I'd love to just get a read of the room. If y'all are open to sharing with me in the chat, the answers to a couple questions. First and foremost is, where are you calling in from today? Just go ahead and throw in the chat. Where are you calling in from today? Indiana, Washington, great. Orlando, Hawaii, Honolulu, amazing. Austin, Minneapolis, Oregon, Dallas, Central Illinois, Toronto, Oakland, Kansas City, Austin, SF, Portland, amazing. I was just out in Eugene, Oregon. First time I've been out in Oregon. Atlanta, Brooklyn, amazing. Cool. Thank you all so much for sharing. Next, I'd love to hear one word to describe how you're feeling today. What is one word that you would use to describe how you are feeling today? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Philly, excited, mad, thanks for being here anyways. Optimistic, focused, overwhelmed, tired, caffeinated, excited, tired. I feel you. I definitely feel you on that. Anticipatory, hopeful, excited, overworked, definitely. Cool, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing. Again, super excited to be here with y'all. And the first piece of what I want to talk about today with mindset is actually talking about what is mindset. How do we want to define mindset? I think there's a lot of different elements, a lot of different ways to define it. And I'd love to hear from all of you in the chat. Some words or phrases that come to mind. How do you define mindset for yourself? What comes to mind for you when you think of mindset? Some words or phrases that come to mind when you think of mindset. Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Awesome. How you interpret the events around you, perspective, positivity, growth and fixed mindsets, huge one, Kayla, definitely. Frame of thoughts and feelings, parameter structure, background programming. I love that answer. Lindsay, that's great. Where my mind is at the moment, thoughts and beliefs, inner thinking. Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. I think the cool part about mindset is it includes all of these things. And for this particular workshop, I want to define it in a very specific way. So for this workshop, I'm going to define mindset as the summation of your most thoughts. So if you take all of the thoughts that you think on a daily basis, both the conscious and subconscious, add them all together, this is what we talk about as your mindset. And I'm going to continue to come back to this definition throughout the workshop, but I want to make this very specific point that your mindset is made up of patterns of individual thoughts. So your mindset being the summation of your most thoughts. And in thinking about mindset, also thinking about why you all are here, I want to talk about why this matters. Why does mindset matter? Why does getting to know our most thoughts matter? And so we'd love to hear from you all again in the chat. What brought you here? What interested you in this particular workshop? And specifically, why do you want to improve your mindset? Love to hear from you in the chat. What are some reasons, some things that are important to you? Why do you want to improve your mindset? Helping handle situations, interrupting negative and overwhelming thought patterns, totally. Struggling with focus, it's within my control. Absolutely is, Heather. Motivation and mindset influences behavior, totally. We'll talk a lot about that here in a second. Doing a lot of CBT research, using it in your daily life, room for improvement and new theories, awesome. Feeling more motivated and in control of your goals, absolutely. Struggling with negative emotions. Kayla says, your perspective is reality. Shifting mindset can change your reality, absolutely. We'll talk about that here in a second as well. Keeping a healthy mindset to keep my vibrations at a good level, awesome. Cool, thank you all so much, everyone. And I think, all of what you shared can really be summed up in an idea. The idea being that the quality of your life is the quality of your thoughts. Because what you think every day, and especially what you think about habitually, has the largest impact on your life, far and above anything else. If we are thinking disempowered, negative, fear-based thoughts, we will experience a disempowered, negative, fear-based life. And if we think empowered, positive, uplifting thoughts, most of the time, you will experience an empowered, positive, uplifting life. And why is that? Why is that the case? We've probably heard some version of this before, but why specifically is that the case? And I think it's really because everything starts with thoughts. So your thoughts, how you think about things, drive your decisions. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I move towards this? Do I move away from that? Can I do this? Am I allowed to do that? Am I worthy of this? How you think dictates, directs how you decide. And how you decide dictates your results. Do you get up and exercise every morning? Do you let yourself sleep in and not eat so well? Do you work on yourself and open yourself up to love? Do you stay in fear and not put yourself out there? Do you invest in the future, save money for the future? Do you overspend and not keep a budget? What you decide dictates the results that you get. And so essentially, the thoughts you think directly create the results that you have. But the issue is that our mindset, the summation of our most thoughts, are often not what we'd like them to be. They're usually disempowered, they are fear-based, they can be quite self-critical and cruel. And when those are the kinds of thoughts that we're thinking, we get less than desirable results. A relationship that's lackluster, a career that's unfulfilling, lots of stress and anxiety and overwhelm. So the value of this kind of mindset work is that from one perspective, we are addressing the problem at the core. Because when we're working to shift and change the thoughts that we habitually think to be more of what we'd like them to be, we improve our decisions. And when we improve our decisions, we improve our results. So the question then becomes, okay, how do we do that? Like, how do we actually start to shift our thinking and the thoughts that we're thinking habitually? And there are a lot of different approaches to mindset work, a lot of ways you can work on your thinking and your mindset. And for the sake of this workshop, I want to focus in on one specific idea, specifically on limiting beliefs. And I'd be curious to know, for the folks who are here, who's heard this concept before? Just go ahead and throw an I have in the chat. Robin says, raise his hand, perfect. If you've heard of this concept before. Awesome. So follow-up question, I'd love to hear from you. What comes to mind when you think of limiting beliefs? What comes to mind when you think of limiting beliefs? Shame, negative self-talk, definitely. Closed-minded, inner critic, yeah, limited progress, absolutely. Fear, stuck, undeserving, yeah, you will. You'll get a copy of this presentation after. I can't do that. Driving with the emergency brake on, that's a great analogy. Poor self-esteem, self-sabotage, absolutely. And so again, for the sake of this workshop, I want to keep the definition of limiting beliefs really simple. And how I define a limiting belief is a belief that is rooted in fear. So we would say that any belief that comes from a place of fear is a limiting belief. Limits your potential, limits your options, limits your ability to move forward. It inherently limits your growth. It limits you getting what you want in a way that feels good. And when we talk about limiting beliefs, it's interesting to notice where they show up. They often show up when we are faced with uncomfortable situations and when we're faced with doing something that we've never done before. And they stop us. They limit us. They feed our avoidance. They feed our procrastination, our playing small. Those are usually some pretty overt behaviors. If we notice them from a patterns perspective, there's probably some limiting beliefs driving those behaviors. And here's the interesting thing, I think, about limiting beliefs is they actually serve a function. They have a function because as humans, as animals, our brains are hardwired for survival. Our entire biology, you think about the most base part of your brain, the reptilian brain, is hardwired to survive, to look for and to be aware of danger. And when we're considering doing something that we've never done before, our brain says there's a chance we could die doing this thing that we've never done before, which if you're out in the wild, real, very real. But if the game is telling someone that you have feelings for them, not quite the same situation. So in this day and age, this fear focus is a strategy that we don't need as much anymore, but changing it still requires work because essentially we are working to overcome our biology and we're also working to overcome patterns and habits that we've likely been participating in for years and years and years, if not decades at this point. And that takes work. So part of the game today in this workshop is giving you a taste of what's possible when you start to radically, powerfully shift your thinking into something new. And I want to start with limiting beliefs because I think that they are some of the greatest impediments to us creating the experience of life that we want. And I think they offer the greatest opportunity for change. I also wanted to share, so you have a better sense of what these look like, have some words for it, some really common limiting beliefs. And there's a limitless number of forms that these can take, but I want to share some common ones with you just to give you a sense of what these can sound like. And I know personally for myself, I've had a few on here, both on here and not on here, that have really come up and gotten in the way for me. I know one in particular for me that's been really big is I don't have what it takes. I've been self-employed since the middle of 2017, and it's just been interesting, over the last couple of years doing this work and starting to recognize some of the limiting beliefs that are really at the core for me. And that's a big one. The idea that I'm not going to be able to do it, I'm not capable of doing it, I don't have what it takes, I don't have the strength or the resilience or the capacity to be able to create the things that I want. And it ends up leading me to playing small, or I stay with the things that I know, I stay with the things that are safe, that I already know how to do, and I don't put myself out there as much. So that's a big one for me. Another big one for me is this limiting belief for this idea that I'm inherently not enough. And more specifically, I'm unwanted. I'm not worthy of other people's love and affection and time and energy. That one comes up for me a lot in relationships, thinking about creating the kinds of relationships that I want to have with people, especially when I'm thinking about setting a boundary, when I'm thinking about being vulnerable with someone, when I'm thinking about asking for what I want. This limiting belief of I'm unwanted, I'm not worthy of other people's love and affection comes up and gets in the way for me. It stops me from taking action. It stops me from creating the kinds of relationships that I want to. And the power in recognizing this, the power in being aware of it, is it gives me the opportunity to say, I actually don't want to participate in this pattern anymore. I don't want this belief to continue to be the thing that drives my behavior, drives my decisions. And in recognizing it, seeing that, and then having the opportunity to choose differently, I've been able to create a very different experience of relationships and a very different experience of my business. But it was because I did the work to become aware of what those beliefs were, and then got clear on, how do I want this to go different? How do I want to show up differently? How do I want to choose differently? So that's the intention, and that's the idea behind starting to identify and be more aware of the limiting beliefs that you have, and the opportunity in being able to change them. So I want to give you all an opportunity to reflect on and start to give some thought to what your limiting beliefs might be. This is going to be the first part of a few-part exercise that I'm going to take you through pretty much now through the end of the workshop. But it's going to help you not only identify some of these limiting beliefs, but then also support you in starting to shift them, change them into something new. So what I would love to have you do is think about an area of life where you'd like to create something new, a new result that you'd really love to see somewhere in your life. Maybe it's finding a partner, life partner, a friend, making more money, starting a new career, or maybe sharing art, creating art and sharing art. I'll give you a couple seconds. I just want you to think about a result that you'd really love to see in your life, something that feels exciting, something that feels really, really fun. Now, in thinking about this result, I want you to imagine, thanks for Sharon David writing a book, that's awesome. In thinking about this result, I want you to think about, imagine, hypothetically, that you're gonna get started on that, and you're gonna get started on it today. You're gonna start to move towards that new thing, take steps towards that new thing today, literally right now. You're gonna start to take some big action, some massive action towards it. And in thinking about that, thinking about moving towards this new career, towards writing this book, making a living with your new coaching career, and taking action towards it, I want you to reflect on and think about what do you notice about the limiting beliefs that come up for you around that idea. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes. And again, I want you to think about this result that you want to create. I want you to imagine and start to take massive action today. Literally, as soon as this is over, you're going to go start to take action towards it. And I want you to notice what comes up for you. What sorts of thoughts, what sorts of fears, what sorts of hesitations start to come up for you. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do some brainstorming. I want you to just notice and write down whatever comes up for you.
Hayden,
I'll
we have
go ahead.
a question
Yep,
in the chat
sure.
about that specifically. Kayla is asking, is the focus on what's fun or what you need in terms of question number one? She said they feel
I would
sort of
say,
different.
sure. I'd say dealer's choice, Kayla. whichever. Ultimately, I think the idea is getting clear on things that will improve our life. So maybe for the sake of this particular exercise, focus on what's fun. Focus on something that feels fun and exciting. I'm going to go ahead and throw the prompt in the chat here. Y'all can see it. And then I'm also going to, so you can see it, share these common limiting beliefs again. So I'll give you the next 3 minutes. And again, just reflect on, think about as you move towards this thing, this exciting result, what comes up for you? What sorts of fears or limiting beliefs do you notice? Take the next couple of minutes and we will come back together. Think about 1 more minute. All right, let's go ahead and come back together. Thank you, everybody, so much for sharing in the chat what's coming up for you. These are challenging and can be uncomfortable to share and own. You know, I've been doing this work for a number of years, and there are new limiting beliefs that I come across because I wasn't ready to see them. I wasn't ready to own it, or I just didn't have the awareness of it yet. And so I think part of the game, which we'll also talk about here at the end in terms of tools and strategies that you can use, is continuing to do this work, continuing to build this awareness of your limiting beliefs. So in identifying what your limiting beliefs are, the next piece is starting to look at how do we change it? How do we shift it? And I want to walk you through a visualization exercise, this guided visualization, designed to help you connect to and imagine a future where these limiting beliefs don't exist. And this is really important because when we find ourselves with circumstances that are less than ideal, usually what we do is we rail against them, we complain, I wish it wasn't like this, you know, I hate this so much, I wish it was different, why can't this just change? I wish I was less stressed, I wish I was less anxious, I wish I was less bored, etc., etc. But the interesting thing about this perspective, this way of thinking, this line of thinking, is it's exactly what keeps us stuck. Because the way that your brain functions, your brain cannot erase, it can only replace. Can't erase, can only replace. So when we're focused on what we don't want, funny enough, we get more of it. So with limiting beliefs, if we're trying to argue with it, if we're trying to disprove it, it actually doesn't work. Any energy that we give in any way to limiting beliefs, we just make it stronger. We make them more real. Because ultimately, too, at the end of the day, right, it's a story. It's a story that we've created. And the more that we focus on it, rail against it, complain, it makes it more real. So the game with mindset work, truly creating a different set of circumstances than the one that we have right now, is we have to build a new mindset. We have to build a new belief system. We have to build a new collection of thoughts in a completely different paradigm, meaning completely outside of whatever limiting beliefs we've brought to our lives to this point in time. And the question is then, how do we do that? So, like I said, I want to take you through a guided visualization that's going to help you step out of these limiting beliefs and into a new paradigm, a new future. And what I want you to do first is take a look at the list of limiting beliefs that you just wrote down. And I want you to pick one of those beliefs that feels like it's the stickiest, that feels like it's got an emotional charge to it, feels like it's got weight, it feels heavy. So look at the list that you wrote down and then pick one that feels particularly sticky, feels particularly charged, like it's particularly heavy. And then either give me a thumbs up or just give me an I got it in the chat. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Got it? Awesome. Cool. So, like I said, I'm going to take you through a short guided visualization. Shortly, I will ask you to close your eyes. We'll take some deep breaths together, and then we'll go through the visualization. My recommendation is that you turn off your camera and actually turn away from your computer if you can and you can still hear. I find it helps to focus and to allow yourself to get fully into the visualization. And as we're going through this, I want you to just focus on relaxing, focus on bringing your attention to your body and allowing whatever comes up to come up. So I'll invite you to settle in to your seat, to wherever you are currently seated or standing. I'm going to invite you to sit up nice and tall. And when you're ready, go ahead and close your eyes. We are going to take 5 deep breaths together. These breaths will be a nice long inhale through the nostrils. We will hold it at the top, and then we'll do a slow exhale through the mouth. I'll cue you for each part, and we'll do 5 total breaths. So first breath, we're going to go ahead and breathe in through the nostrils. Hold it at the top. Out through the mouth. In again through the nostrils. Hold at the top. Out through the mouth. In through the nose. Hold at the top. And out through the mouth. 2 more. In through the nose. Hold at the top. Out through the mouth. Last one. In through the nose. Hold at the top. And out through the mouth. And just want you to relax into your body. Relax your face, your neck, shoulders, chest and arms, stomach, hips, legs, feet. Just bring your attention to this moment, feeling into what it feels like to be here right now. I want you to call to mind that limiting belief that you identified earlier. See it in your mind and notice how it feels to be connected to that belief. Is it heavy? Is it overwhelming? Does it feel dark? So I want you to see that limiting belief in your mind. And I want you to now imagine what your life would be like if that belief no longer existed, disappeared. You are now living a life without that belief. That belief does not exist for you anymore. What does that mean for you? What does that mean for you that that belief no longer exists? And notice, without that belief, how do you feel? Feel that in your body. Feel the difference it makes for you to not have that belief stopping you, slowing you down anymore, because it doesn't exist. I want you to think about, without that belief, how does your life change? How does your life change without that belief? What would you be doing? Where would you be? How does that feel? Notice how that feels, where you feel that in your body, to live without this belief. Fast forward into the future without this belief. What's different for you in the future now that this no longer exists? How do you feel differently about yourself? And I want you to just imagine, be with that experience for a minute. What's different for you in the future now that this no longer exists? But you speak differently to yourself. How do you feel differently as a person? What words come to mind for you as you imagine yourself in this space as this new version of you? Take a couple deep breaths. Ground into that experience. What you see, what you hear, what you feel, what comes to mind. Then I'm going to ask you to ground back down into your body. Wiggle your toes, your fingers. Feel back into your legs, your stomach, your chest and shoulders, up through your neck into your head. Just come back to this moment. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. And I'll invite you to keep your cameras off for a couple more minutes. And I want to give you just a few minutes to jot down some notes on that experience. So thinking about, how was that experience for you? What came up? What did you notice? What did you see? How did you feel? I'm going to give you another 3 minutes. And again, just jot down any notes that feel relevant, that feel pertinent, connecting to what you just saw. Take a couple of minutes and then we'll come back together. Take about 30 more seconds. All right, keeping your cameras off, I'm going to ask you to do one more activity. The idea with the visualization that you just went through is you are connecting to a new future outside of the limiting beliefs that have been habitual for you to this point, that have been part of your mindset to this point. And one way to look at that is you are essentially stepping into a future version of yourself now. And I think from a mindset work practices perspective, the more regularly that we connect to the version of ourselves that we want to be, the sooner we become that person. The sooner we adopt that mindset, the sooner we're thinking new thoughts. So what I want to invite you to do is to choose 2 to 3 words that feel representative of the version of yourself, the version of your life that you just connected to. They can be any of the ones that you see on the screen here, but also if there are other words that feel resonant, that felt like they better fit the version of yourself that you saw, the version of your future that you saw, please go with those. I'll give you about a minute and a half to do that. Again, you're picking 2 to 3 words that feel representative of this future version of self. All right, feel free to jump back on camera if you like. We are going to wrap this piece up and talk about practices and strategies. And before we do that, I'd love to know, anyone open to sharing in the chat what words they chose? Either one of them, all of them, however many you'd like to share. We'd love to hear what words came up for you as a representative of this new version of self, this new mindset that you are adopting. Visionary, awesome. David, love that. It's a great word. Peaceful, grounded confidence, awesome. Joy, love, bravery, great words. Awesome. Authenticity, groundedness, ease, beauty. Love that. Thanks, Kayla. Confident, Kirby, awesome. Clenching my jaw, interesting thing to notice, Robin. Very interesting thing to notice. Warrior, courage, bravery, centered, fulfilled. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, everybody. So fundamentally, here's the takeaway from today and from this exercise: the identifying the limiting beliefs, the visualizing this new future, this new experience, and then creating some representative words. Your mindset holds the key to the results that you want, the life that you want to live. The question, or the thing to think about, right, is how different would your life be if you showed up as these words every day? Every day. If you were practicing coming from this place, being that version of yourself, connecting to and living from that vision of the future that you saw. And fundamentally, that's really the game with mindset work. You create this mindset by intentionally and consistently practicing these new thoughts. The exercise that we just went through is one that you could repeat, that you can continue to repeat. There's lots of guided visualizations and meditations online. And I wanted to share just a couple simple tools, practices, strategies, things that you can start to think about and start to implement today. I think the first piece, and probably the most important, is making the time. Relating to this as a skill, as a habit that is important to you, that you want to work to improve. You know, fundamentally with mindset work, this is a lifelong practice. You have spent a lot of time building your current mindset, even if it was unintentionally, even if it was unconscious. You spent a lot of time developing these thoughts, thinking these same thoughts over and over and over. So it's going to take time and focused effort to change it. And I like to think about it as a habit, something that you can work to build. But once the habit is built, the returns come more easily in that sense. So my encouragement for all of you is to literally schedule time. Hold yourself accountable to thinking new thoughts. Remember what we said earlier, the brain can't erase, it can only replace. If we're not intentionally giving our brain practice in replacing these old thoughts with new thoughts, thinking these new thoughts, we won't ever see the changes that we're hoping to see. So much of this is creating and protecting the time and showing up to think these new thoughts. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do this, right? You can do this with visualization, exactly what we just said. Joe Dispenza has a great set of guided visualizations if you have done those or not done those before. Journaling, really incredible practice, conversation with self. Mirror work, speaking to yourself in the mirror, using positive affirmations, and what I would call limiting beliefs inventory, which I'll talk about here in a second. But really the takeaway from this piece is scheduling and protecting the time. If this is something that's important to you, I'd encourage you to set aside at least 15 minutes a day, make it in the morning, take this on. I take this on every day for 30 minutes. It's a non-negotiable for me. Sitting down, journaling. I have a set of statements that I read through about who I'm becoming, who I am, the kind of life that I want to lead. And I sit down to the best of my ability every morning and read through those statements because I'm giving my brain practice in thinking new thoughts. Another thing that you can take on as a practice, as a tool, as a strategy is what I would call a limiting beliefs inventory. Fundamentally, when we talk about change, awareness is always the first step. If we're not clear, if we're not aware on what we're thinking, what's getting in the way, what's stopping us, where these things are coming up, we have no power to actually change them. So it behooves us, it's very valuable to spend time building awareness. One of the ways to do this is through what you might call limiting beliefs inventory. So I'll stick these questions here in the chat too, but they'll be in the slides afterwards. But some questions to consider in taking time to sit down and think about these things. Where are all of the places in my life where my limiting beliefs show up? Think about your relationships, think about your money, think about your physical health, think about your career. How have these limiting beliefs stopped me in the past? Where do I notice these beliefs come up for me? How have they stopped me from getting what I want? And then finally, a really important question, I think, what's driving these beliefs? Because the interesting thing about thinking, the interesting thing about thoughts is that there are layers of thought. And on the topmost layer, you have what you might consider conscious thinking, conscious thoughts, the thoughts that we know that we think, that we're aware that we think. But as we start to get down in the layers, we start to get into more subconscious thinking, thoughts that we think, beliefs that we hold that maybe we're not aware of. So the question of what's driving these beliefs is a really valuable question, because essentially what you're doing is you're looking at, how can I reverse engineer this belief? How can I go one layer deeper and look at what are the core narratives that I have about myself, about life, about the world? So another piece to consider, doing some sort of limiting beliefs inventory. The last piece that I'll share with you, and this is really powerful, is what I would call print and post. So these are visual reminders of words, of phrases that inspire you, new thoughts that you'd like to think. These are actually all Post-it notes that I have on my computer monitor. These are all things that are really, right now, really valuable reminders for me, things that I'm trying to keep top of mind. I also have them on the doors, like the door to my office. I have Post-it note as a reminder. I have a Post-it note in the bathroom, in the mirror. So I'm looking at it every day. Again, the game here is getting as much intentional practice as possible, replacing these older beliefs with new beliefs. So the more that you can give yourself physical, visual reminders and opportunities to remember these things, the faster that these things will change. Sweet. So I want to take the next couple of minutes that we have for the end for any questions. Daria, I think there was a question earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna read a couple. I saw two that I copied. So if I missed your question, feel free to pop it in the chat again. But before Bridget, Amber had a question saying, I have an issue with limiting beliefs versus very real obstacles or excuses. I feel like I can't focus on reading up on my new career because I have a big project due Friday and it's cram time. Is this underlying hesitation? I'll paste the question in the chat too.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it's a really great question, Bridget. And if I am understanding
Sorry, that was from
it
Amber.
correctly. Oh, Amber.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding it correctly, I think the thing to notice is whether it's chronic and habitual or whether it's a one-off situation. Because it may very well be that given the circumstances of this week, you don't have the time or the energy to be able to participate in this particular thing. And it would also be a really interesting thing to notice or reflect on, is this a pattern for you? When you think about creating this new career, you often find yourself in a place where you feel like you don't have the time, or you feel like you don't have the resources, or you can't spend the time that you need to read up or research. Because if it's a pattern, then I would say there's probably some underlying belief or fear that's driving that.
I noticed there are some more questions about resources and such in the chat, Hayden, but I'm noticing we're a minute over. So
Yep.
if people need to take off, that's fine. I've pasted Hayden's information in the chat. He's open to being reached out to. He's got his email, his website, and his LinkedIn there. And this was so awesome. Thank you so much, Hayden. And if you all liked this workshop and you want to get notified of other ones, feel free to just follow us on social media or check out our newsletter. We announce them there. And one last thing, we're really trying to improve the workshop series here at Focus. So if you have feedback, we would so appreciate it. Really truly takes like a minute or two to complete. The forms in the chat there. Thank you again. And yeah, everyone have a great rest of your evening. Thank you, Hayden.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.